Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the weekend that was for April. We're in April 2nd, 2018. Happy Monday evening, everyone. Hope your week has gotten off to a good start. Um, it is championship night. Championship night for the men's college basketball championship. Villanova, who pounded my champion Kansas, and will face Michigan, who had to come back a little bit, but in the end ran away from Loyola Chicago on Saturday. Um, my honest, what I want and what I'm going to predict are a little different here. I want Michigan to win. I think it'd be fun for Michigan to win, but I think Villanova's going to win. I think Michigan is a little better defensively. You know, but I think Villanova just can shoot the lights out of the ball. Now if Villanova doesn't get off to a very hot start and their shots just don't fall, that's going to change the dynamic of the game entirely. But I'm not counting on Villanova at least being as cold as they were against Texas Tech. Their toughest game feels like it has been Texas Tech just because their threes weren't even falling in that game. But there's a lot to live up to for the men's Final Four, and at least the championship game tonight, because the women's Final Four and championships have already been played, and they were outstanding. Notre Dame in overtime knocked off the mighty UConn. It's Gino Auriemma has built such a dominant program out at UConn that you just get surprised every single time that they lose. They're so good that when they lose, it's jaw dropping. They've had something like 7 undefeated seasons. That's amazing. That's outstanding. You don't see teams with that kind of dominance anymore, except in UConn's women's basketball. And a lot of people don't necessarily get into women's college basketball. I don't want to say it's because it's not as fun and exciting typically, because that's certainly not the case, as we learned over this weekend. But UConn just blows everybody out so much that you typically tune out because, UConn's going to win it again. Back when UConn had their however many long game win streak it was that lasted something like 2.5 years or 3 years or something like that, I personally tuned in whenever they were on national TV because I wanted to see them. I wanted to see if anyone could beat them. And as it's starting to get to the point where they're still dominant, I mean, they went undefeated up until the Final Four. But Notre Dame, just played scrappy defense and beat them in overtime. In the second game that also went to overtime, mind you, Mississippi State ran away from Louisville in overtime, but 2 overtime games in the Final Four, that's just great fun basketball. And then last night in their championship game, Notre Dame, Mississippi State, tied with 4 seconds left. And Notre Dame, makes a great inbounds play and a smooth 3-pointer from the corner to win the game at the buzzer. I mean, the men's Final Four games certainly didn't live up to the women's Final Four games, and it's going to be damn near impossible. It can still happen, but it's going to be so hard for tonight's Villanova-Michigan game to live up to what that was, because that was just exciting. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it's why I think that there should be more love for women's college basketball. There are exciting games. They're just sometimes harder to find. And the dominant force in women's college basketball, it's getting to the point now where teams can keep up with them. Whereas, as soon as recent as 3 or 4 years ago, nobody could. So, congratulations, Notre Dame, and your national championship. I raise my glass to you in hopes that tonight's game will be just as riveting as yours last night. Um, Before I continue on with some other little fun sports tidbits for today, I do want to do my What Am I Drinking segment because last week it was trash. Not the segment itself, the beer I drank was trash. Oh, I've got some of my bottles of stuff that I've liked. You can't see the display because they're over in the corner right now, and I'm sort of reworking some things. But I do like to keep bottles from stuff that I thoroughly enjoyed on display. That one's not going there. That one gone. I As soon as I was done recording, I got some like a little snack to just help it go down. I mean, even the worst beers, no beer left behind. Oh, but that was such a struggle. Today, I'm going a little smooth, like as smooth as that 3-point shot that was made by Notre Dame last night. I'm going with Mad Tree. Now, what Mad Tree does very well is they do IPAs, and this one is a take on their Psychopathy, which is their flagship. I'd say it's their flagship beer. It's the one that is most well known. They've done some other good ones, like they had one called Identity Crisis a few years ago that was really, really good. But this is a blood orange Psychopathy, and this one is, it's got a nice golden color to it. You get a good little hint of the blood orange. It's not overpowering, and it, compared to last week, just drinks oh so smooth. Delicious. Um, I like it. I don't like it enough to maybe display it, but it's a good 3.75 ish style beer. Again, it's smooth. I like the flavor. I think where I lose it is there's a little bit of an aftertaste with it, but it's not something I'm going to complain about to the point where I'm like, that is crap, because it's really quite good. It's just not super amazing, but it's one of my favorites from them. And it's brewed in Cincinnati, Ohio. They built this fantastic new brewery about 10 minutes ish from where I grew up. So it's definitely when it's brewed, because I think it's a seasonal brew or a limited brew whenever they do it. I definitely recommend checking it out. So let's now that I've sort of given my prediction for tonight's game and some quick thoughts on the women's Final Four. Let's talk a little bit of baseball. I've watched quite a few games over the weekend, and it's just so fantastic to have baseball back. The crack of the bat, the sound of the ball hitting the catcher's mitt, with a nice hard fastball. It really, now that we have full on baseball, it's really a fun sign, because it tells me that it means that summer's around the corner. I know spring just started. I know that some places are still having crappy weather. New York, howdy doody, happy opening day, have a snowstorm. Oh, Mother Nature, you a troll. But, both the Yankees and the Mets home opening days got snowed out today. So, they'll make up those games later. The Red Sox are 3-1. The Reds are stinking it up. However, though, they were playing a very good game against the Cubs as of this recording. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a quick peek of. It's over. The Reds have their first win of the year. They beat the Cubs. How that? Now there's something impressive. You get swept by the Nationals, and then you come in and beat a a divisional rival like the Cubs. That's cool. That is cool. I'm gonna have to check out the stats on that one when we're done here because I want to see who pitched that game because they did a fantastic job. It looks like. Um, but it's great to have baseball back. I mean, I spent a good amount of time this weekend enjoying some of the games. It's fun. We're getting to the end. Tonight marks the end of college basketball. We're getting down to the last week of the NHL. We're getting down to the last week of the NBA. One thing I'm going to do, hopefully soon, once the NHL and NBA seasons end, is I'm going to take. I'm going to sort of set up a bracket of the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs. Let's see how we do with and see how much fun we can have with that. Hopefully, it'll be better than my college bracket. There's less teams and a little more logical, play to this because they're series. They're not just one-off games. The other thing I want to do, because of how the NHL does their playoff system, is I want to do a comparison of how their playoff settings and seedings would be in the old system versus the new system. Because I'm going to be quite honest, that new system, I know it ish, but it's still very confusing to me. I understand that they want to prioritize winning your division, but it really screws up the seedings a little bit. And so I'm actually going to take a few minutes, hopefully, do a little comparison and side by side. Maybe I'll do it when I do my NHL bracket. But I mean, the way they do the playoffs right now is screwy. So I'd like to do a comparison of that, of the current system versus the old system, just to see how different they'd be. And even more interesting, I'd actually like to see if different teams actually make the playoffs based on the way the seeding goes with that. It's going to be interesting. But we've only got about, I think in each sport, each team only has about 4 to 6 games left. And living up here in the New England area, it's a very exciting time because both the Bruins and the Celtics are going to have extraordinarily high seeds. As a matter of fact, I think they're both looking at the 2 line. I know the Bruins are still fighting for the 1. So we'll just sort of see how that goes. But playoffs are right around the corner. Basketball's almost over, and that means tanking's almost over because good gravy, I hate tanking in the NBA. It means we're going to get good basketball and not sometimes, 3 out of 4 games being shitty basketball at this time of year. Okay, maybe half the games, not 3 out of 4, but you definitely know that when you see a top tier team play a team that's trying to tank, you're going to get awful basketball. It's so unwatchable. So at this point, I'd like to sort of go into some of the fun little headlines from this weekend. But first off, some well wishes out to Patrick McCaw, who took a very nasty looking tumble earlier in the weekend on, I believe it was Saturday night against Sacramento. It sounds like he's been released from the hospital, and there's no major injuries, which is good news to hear because usually when you see falls like that, stuff gets broken and stuff gets torn. And in this case, that's not, in this particular situation, that's not the case. So good for him. I know that the Golden State Warriors right now are facing a lot of health issues. So it's important for them to get healthy for the playoffs. I believe I've heard that Steph Curry isn't going to be around for the first round. KD's still got that rib issue, but it sounds like a lot of them are coming back at the right time, which means we sort of need to follow other players now who are trying to come back from injuries. Embiid for Philly, Kyrie Irving for the Celtics, and Chris Paul for the Houston Rockets. It's I'm sort of gonna be following their recoveries to see if they'll be sort of good to go for the playoffs. But those are again only about a week away, week and a half too. The others, and this made me laugh. This made me laugh a little bit. LeBron James has issued a letter to Alabama over copyright infringement. And when I saw this, I was a little confused. I'm very unsure of exactly what LeBron James can accuse Alabama of infringing. And it's apparently like a segmented show sort of thing that Alabama wants to do, and it's being set up from Nick Saban and Julio Jones. I think Julio Jones, Saban, and other football players had this little online little show called Shop Talk, which is essentially them in a barbershop setting talking about Alabama football in like a barbershop while they're getting haircuts or something like that. I haven't seen it, but that's interesting. One second, I'm checking something out here. But apparently LeBron James has already done something called Shop Talk, where he's been in a barber shop getting haircuts with friends and talking about pop culture, sports, and all sorts of things like that. And I don't remember this. I haven't watched any of it. It sounds kind of goofy though. But come on, man. If anyone's being infringed on here, and this is going to be a little bit of a off the beaten path, deepish cut here. Y'all ripping off a Brutus beefcake. Oh, yes, you are. Because if anyone made barbershop segments fun and interesting and a thing of TV and the internet, it's Brutus Beefcake's Barbershop. I mean, come on, from the old, WWF/WWE days, Shawn Michaels would not have been, he probably still would have been a fantastic superstar, but what really, again, launched his career was him kicking his tag partner, Marty Jannetty, through the glass window of a barbershop on TV. I mean, not that they were getting haircuts and talking shop or anything like that, but I mean, to make a big deal out of infringing on barbershop television segments it's kind of laughable to me. I find this really goofy. I mean, I'm sure there's better things for LeBron and Alabama to be beefing over. And another, to finish off my little sports talk today, two more things actually. I do want to send out a congratulations to a guy named Scott Foster, who is an emergency goalie in Chicago. He's an accountant by day, and we go to this tryout, and if anything happens to the goalies, we, I guess, get thrust into action sort of thing. It's one of those situations where they get to go to a game and, they're essentially on standby just in case anything happens. These players usually don't dress for the games. They're just there in case something happens. Well, in Chicago on, I believe it was Friday night? No, Thursday. This was longer ago. You'll have to forgive me on that one. But this is a guy who's an accountant by day. And he won a tryout to be an emergency goalie, just in case something were to happen. Well, stuff started happening on Thursday. Chicago, who's been dealing with injury issues all year, had a goalie go down with an injury earlier, either the day before or earlier that day. No, it was in pregame rituals because he apparently pulled something during that. They put the backup goalie in. and the backup goalie gets hurt halfway through almost halfway through the third period. Now Chicago was already up big, but if you're going to have one shining moment to impress the world, Scott Foster, accountant by day, who didn't even anticipate even dressing for the game, gets put into an NHL game and lights the world on fire because he stopped every shot that was fired at him. These are the stories that sports movies are made from, whether it's going to be a 30 for 30 or an actual motion, feature film. Good on him. That's a dream come true right there. And Mr. Foster, I raise my glass to you. You're a trailblazer, and much love for you making the most of the situation you were put in. And that's a delicious one too. I think you can get Mad Tree in Chicago, Mr. Foster. You deserve. The last thing I want to sort of go over is something based off of what I said last week, and it's sort of a situation where I made some predictions. Some of them were good. Some of them I got a little wrong. Last week, there were coaching vacancies that I recall hearing about, and I said that Chris Mack would not leave Xavier without the proper deal being given to him. And, I was kind of right there. It was certainly a crazy deal that Louisville offered him. He got 7 years at $4 million a year, and that's the deal that you need to lure a guy away from a good program like Xavier. So Chris Mack is the coach at Louisville now. Whether or not that program will continue to face sanctions down the road remains to be seen. We'll let that work itself out. And then Jeff Capel was hired, I believe, the same day or the day before at Pitt, to which I remember saying, who really wants that Pitt job? All the players have left. It's not that fantastic looking of a job. However, if there's one person who I know has the capability to at least recruit, I think Capel's the guy to do it. He was working as an assistant coach under Coach K for the past couple of years. Before that, he was at Oklahoma, and he had some good years at Oklahoma. He had the Griffin brothers, Blake, and I can't remember what his brother's name was, but he had Blake Griffin, did some good things with him. And before that, he was at VCU, and I think he was the guy at VCU before Shaka Smart was there. So he's got some good head coaching experience. So that's going to fill that role. And then Xavier hired... Xavier essentially promoted their top assistant coach, whose name is escaping me right now, and I was about to look it up, but I'm a little short on time right now. A little bit of constraints going on. Lots to do tonight. I'm sorry, but I thought that the way things would happen is that if Chris Mack had gone to Louisville, I thought they were going to at least wait until Loyola lost, and they were going to go after Porter Mosier from Loyola, but they decided to just promote their main assistant. It's a good move. The guy's a good recruiter. I'm not sure how good of a head coach he will be, but he was a good recruiter. He was the guy that got Trayvon Blewett to come to Xavier. He knows the Midwest region well. But as far as I can tell, it looks like Porter Mosier is going to stay at Loyola because I'm not certain there's really an upgraded job right now. Now, something could open up in the next week now that we're getting out of the actual playing season. But, he'll if not this year, next year he'll get some job offers. I'm certain that he's going to be the hot name in college basketball coaching searches. Um, so that's going to sort of wrap it up a little bit for my sports for this week. Um, I want to go over to my cinema side, my film side, where I'm going to just sort of I'm going to start off by going over the top five in the box office, and then I'm going to do a review of a movie that I saw this weekend. So starting off at number one, no surprise here, Ready Player One. Ready Player One. Now, as I'm looking on Box Office Mojo right now, it says its weekend gross was 41 million, but because it was a holiday weekend, we sort of average in another day. So its 4-day total so far is 53,710,000. That's good numbers. That's and I don't pay much attention to tracking, but because I listen to a lot of movie pundits who sort of listen to know a little bit more about this than I do, and they understand how tracking tends to work. I remember hearing that it was only tracking for the 4-day total at about 43 to 45-ish million. So the fact that it made 53 million over its 4-day total, that actually makes me extraordinarily happy. It beat its tracking number by a substantial-ish margin, not a massive margin, but it did better than expected, and I think it's gonna definitely make some money. I do think I'm not sure. We'll see how the drop off week 1 to 2 is, but this potentially, because it is, and we'll get into it but I certainly enjoyed it. I think it's really good. Should have some long legs. It might be the movie to watch as we get closer and closer to Infinity War. I know the weekend before. I think it's the weekend before the weekend before Infinity War. We get Rampage, and we'll when I see Rampage, we'll see what I think of it. But I'm a little apprehensive about Rampage. Number 2 at 17 million is Tyler Perry's Acrimony. I don't know if I've seen many Tyler Perry movies, but he knows his audience and he knows what sort of films he's good at. And Tyler Perry just makes money at the box office with all of his monies, with all of his movies. So I can't say that I'm necessarily surprised by that. I can't remember what it was expected to make, but 17 million, it'll continue to sort of make money. Just again, he knows his audience. He knows his movies. No surprises there. Black Panther falls to number 3. I Can Only Imagine is at 4, and Pacific Rim falls from 1 to 5, and it dropped 66%. That its total gross so far after 2 weeks let's see, let me get the number here, is 45 million. Ready Player One made more than that in its 4-day total. I was iffy. Again, in my review last week, I explained that I didn't love Pacific Rim Uprising and how it's sort of going the Transformers-ish way, and it is showing. The box office numbers are definitely not helping it. It's just proving a point that, and I don't know if Transformers is helping to ruin it because people look at it and go, it's similar. But outside of Boyega's performance, I really was not that thrilled with Pacific Rim. So that is a massive drop though, 66%. We'll see how Ready Player One continues to do, because that is the movie review I'm going to do today. My thoughts on Ready Player One, and it is exactly what I thought it would be. It's a sort of a dystopian society meets a video game slash VR world, and it's fantastic. I gotta say this from start to finish, the story hits home. Now, I should say from start to 96% of the way through the movie, the story hits home. There were some parts right at the ending where I'm just sort of scratching my head, but I gave it a little bit of a pass in this case. But also great performances. Ty Sheridan's Wade Watts slash Parzival, who was the main character in the movie. Great job. You sort of you associate with him. You sort of you know this world is so interesting. People are it's almost like people are addicted to these games, and that's actually part of the plot though is there's all these games and you know in order to you essentially become the ruler of this world and you receive all this the creator's life savings if you find the keys and it's such a dystopian society that everyone out there is out they're out there trying to better their lives by getting these keys, keeping in mind though that the villain just wants to take it over and just make more money as a business. He wants to essentially create his own version of the Oasis. And that's Ben Mendelsohn, who plays the villain. Oh my God. I love Ben Mendelsohn as an actor. He plays such great villains. Like Director Krennic in Rogue One, but in this case, he plays like this corporate dick, and he plays this corporate, like, douchebag role so well. It's great acting. Olivia Cook plays a character named Samantha, and her gamer tag is Artemis. She's like one of the most well-known gamers in there. But I have to say, one of the standout performances in this is T.J. Miller as Irook, who is sort of a mercenary, weapons-grade guy. They did such a fun job with that character. I really loved that sort of henchman of a villain. But what's really great about this movie is what also was some of the things that people were nervous about, which are all the old school references and nostalgia moments just going to be in there to create moments? And the answer is no. There are so many references, nostalgia moments, like moments from just 80s movies and games and stuff like that, and even modern games and such. But they're all cleverly used. Like, the DeLorean's not in there for a split second to make you go, oh, look, it's the DeLorean. Oh, that's neat. Oh, my God, Back to the Future. I get it. It actually plays a vital role to the movie. Like, okay, there are some moments that are a little bit nostalgia driven, and I'm gonna throw a little spoiler in here. Don't pay attention. It's not vital to the plot, but there's one part where you're seeing all these avatars as they're entering the Oasis game startup area where they're talking about the avatars. You can be anything you want to be, and one of the little characters that pops out is Marvin the Martian. And that's one situation where it's sort of like, okay, there's a little hint of a nostalgia moment that doesn't have important use, but like the things that they did with the DeLorean and the Iron Giant, and I can't throw some of them in because some of them make it really spoilery, but it's a fun movie. It's a blast from start to finish. I loved the characters. I especially loved the world that they built within the Oasis. And even still, when you're out of the Oasis, you sort of feel for these characters that are in this torn down Columbus, Ohio, where they again, minor-ish spoilery territory, but if you read the book, I guess it makes sense. The area is called the Stacks. Like, where Wade lives is the Stacks. And it's these just almost like mobile homes stacked on top of each other. It looks so dystopian, but fantastic at the same time. Um, another actor I want to give a shout out to, but I can't really say much about his character. Simon Pegg. When you find Simon Pegg, he's just fun to follow in this movie. Um, I cannot say enough good about this movie, especially owing to the fact that Spielberg used pretty much all of these references so well, and I would say create a drinking game out of it when it comes out if you get it for home viewing, but you will probably kill yourself because the game I had the idea for before I saw the movie was okay. One shot or drink when you see just a basic reference. Take two if it's a Spielberg reference. You would be gone. I think I saw a report online that there's 138 separate movie references in the movie itself, or like movie and pop culture references. But I mean, I want to see that box office number keep up because it's a movie that deserves every bit of money it's getting. I hope that it has some long legs, at least until Infinity War and Rampage come out. I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10 just based on how much fun I had. And again, they don't just throw all these things in here just to go, oh, look at that. And the other thing that also worried me is this. Okay, spoiler again, ish, not really important. But I thought that this movie was also setting itself up for overly blatant, useless product placement. And I can only think of one instance where there actually was super blatant, out of the way product placement, and it's right at the beginning of the movie. There's a Pizza Hut reference. I mean, outside of that, there really wasn't anything at least that I can remember off the top of my head, that was just sort of like, ha ha ha, product placement, not in the same way Jurassic World does it. But, again, 8.5 out of 10 for Ready Player One. I recommend it so hard. Please go see this movie. Let me know what you thought of it. All right. I think that's all I got for you this weekend. It was a very busy weekend for me. I know we had Easter. I had a little bit of a quiet day on Easter. I put some models together. I'm calling them models. Lego is a building model. It is not a toy, and I will still argue with it. But that's what I did yesterday, along with some baseball. It was a quiet weekend, Easter. But this week we have the Masters, and real quick before I leave it off for this week, the Masters, my favorite golf major. I would love to one day play Augusta National. It's such a beautiful course. Just it's so lush and beautiful. I mean, I don't love the changes they made to it, but I'm getting this. I'm getting flustered because of how much I love this tournament. And Tiger's back. Tiger's back, and he could be in contention. But my quick prediction is we are going to see a former champion win. It's not Tiger Woods, though. It's not Bubba Watson. I'm going to take Phil Mickelson as my Masters champion for this year. Let's see how that goes. And we're coming up on playoff time for the NBA and the NHL, so lots of exciting stuff coming. All right, so that again will do it for me for this episode. I hope you liked it. I'm still working out some of the kinks. I'm hoping to improve some production value of it soon. I'm still learning. You're gonna have to forgive me. I know I'm sort of babbling on off topic here. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you maybe even learned something. I hope you enjoyed my review of Ready Player One, especially. That is the one thing that I really want to push is Ready Player One. If you liked this video, you are more than welcome to either leave a comment or subscribe to my channel, because I do these weekend that was videos every Monday. I really would love to start interacting with some people, so you can either leave a comment below or you can contact me on Twitter at DL Movie Sports. I'm frequently checking that. We can have some conversations. Question for the week, if I want to set up some comment questions here. One, how was your bracket? Tell me how your bracket ended up. Have you seen Ready Player One? What did you think? Or how was the first weekend of baseball for you? And who do you think is going to win the Masters this year? Again, comment below. I love hearing feedback. I know I'm still fairly new at this. Give me time. We'll improve. Improvement is only as good as the feedback I get. So until next time, have a good week, everybody, and cheers.